Hi, I'm John Titsworth with XCaliber Firearms. Today we're going to show you how to disassemble and reassemble the YHM Mite rebuild. One of the things you probably ought to use neoprene gloves so that when you're disassembling your silencer, you can keep that lead and stuff off your hands. So we recommend the use of a glove like this or something similar. Now, what you're going to get when you get your rebuild back, of course, it's going to have the new end cap in it. So you're going to need a tool to get this end cap out. We send one. You can put this tool in a vise. You can use this tool with a wrench. It's a 1 inch, approximately 1 inch, it's a little bit larger. Okay. You can put that tool, what I like to do it is load the tool into its little holes there, and then take the tool and then just use hand pressure and turn the end cap, and then just unscrew it like you're doing, like you would with any other suppressor. Set that aside. Now, this is the part that you have to understand about using the disassembly tool. The disassembly tool is two parts. It's the main pusher tool, which is this, and it's also the tip that goes inside the back end cap, which in this case is non-removable, and that's why we make this tool. We also ship a little aluminum tip that actually rides down in the baffle, the very first baffle, so you drop it in where you screw the barrel on into the baffle so it seats all the way down, and then that rides against this so that when you push, you're pushing against this and you won't tear your baffles up. So that's the reason we use these. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to first insert this part into your baffle. This is your first baffle. It'll take a little practice to get this, but you can get it right. Make sure that's seated all the way. You can use a little range rod, like this is just a piece of a little 17 HMR cleaning rod that I use for this kind of work. Then what you want to do is you want to take this part here that screws into the end of your silencer. Screw that right in there like so until it gives you a little resistance. And then take the pusher rod, piece of all thread, and screw that in. Now, if you don't shoot your silencer 1,500 times before you use this tool, you should be able to use it by hand. If you cannot use it by hand, we have it set up so that you can either place this in a vise and then use a tool like this, a little crescent wrench, to crank the baffles out. You shouldn't have to do that though. You should just be able to hold this, turn this till you start feeling resistance. Now this part is very critical. When you start feeling resistance, you're pressing, using a great deal of mechanical force to press these stainless steel baffles out of this aluminum tube. Aluminum is a soft material and can bulge. So, and there's also barrel threads, or not barrel threads, but there's screw threads in the end of this suppressor. Make sure, this is why we have the rim on the table, before you start pushing on the baffle, that this has a generous coating. And you probably should do this before you put the tool in there. Spray plenty of rim oil inside the suppressor or a similar lubricant. Never disassemble any silencer with a tool like this when it's dry. You will destroy your silencer, or could potentially destroy it. When the baffles come out, make sure they don't catch in the threaded area here at the end of the silencer. Okay? And just all you have to do is just look in there and watch. If you feel a great deal of resistance, you feel like you can't turn this, there's two reasons for that. The first reason is, well, it's a lot of crud in there and it's built up and it's very hard. Okay, so you might have to use a couple of wrenches or a vise and a wrench to get it started, but make sure you have plenty of lubricant. If you do that and you still feel a bunch of resistance and it's not moving at all, something is wrong. Okay, probably you've shot the suppressor too much. There's a great deal of lead buildup. It needs to soak overnight. In that case, give us a call. Look the number up on the silencer store and give us a call. We will instruct you as to what to do if you can't get your baffles to move using this tool. But in 99.9% of the cases, you should be able to get the baffles to start moving using this tool. And most of the time, that's really all you're going to need to do is to get the baffles to move. Make sure you watch the end as you screw the tool into the silencer, and as the baffles come out, gently take them out. This process might take a little bit because this tool is set up so that you can push out the first 4 baffles really easily. Once you get beyond that, you've already removed everything that's going to possibly stop you from getting your baffle stack out. So, and a lot of times they'll just dump out. But they are a tight fit to the tube, so you may have to use a little range rod like this to kind of push those out. Always drop that out and just kind of get to the side of the baffles there and just press a little bit and they'll come out. Make sure you never like bang or beat on this, you get a hammer and smack it, because that is exactly how you'll take a baffle and drive it to the side of this tube wall. It can happen, believe me. It's easier than you think. Just make sure when the baffles come out that you don't have to force and use a great deal of pressure to get the baffles to move. Alright, once your baffles are out, take a paper towel, just kind of clean the inside of your threads. What you can do also is you can take a piece off the end of this and make it where it'll fit, you know, down in here. And might need a little bit bigger piece, but just kind of like a cleaning patch. And just run that in, run it back out. That'll make sure that you don't have too much extra lubricant or any little particles that are left over inside your suppressor. And that's how you disassemble the silencer. Now, when you disassemble the silencer, make sure you understand that there is a spacer. It's a 304 stainless steel spacer that sits first in the can. First baffle sits against the face of the spacer. This gives a little bit of additional protection against this the buildup and the crud that when you shoot through the suppressor, it kind of helps trap all that. It also spaces your first baffle so that your muzzle crown doesn't get destroyed because it's too close to the threaded area. So anyway, when you want to reassemble this, before you do so, you're obviously going to want to clean your baffles. Your baffles are probably going to have lead buildup. Your first baffle is your blast baffle. It's also the one with the hole in it here. It has a hole in front of the scoop. That's the first bullet that the baffle passes. I mean, the first baffle that the bullet passes through is this baffle with the hole in it. And also make sure when you put the silencer back together that the bullet is flying through this nose cone here. There's a nose cone on each of the face of these baffles. The bullet flies this way through. Okay? The bullet flies through that way. Don't try to shoot the suppressor with the bullets going in the back of the baffle. It won't work right. Okay, so clean your baffles using whatever method you want to use. You can use an ultrasound cleaner. This is all stainless steel, except your end cap and your tube, so don't put those in an ultrasound machine. Doubt you'll have to do anything to your end cap anyway to keep the silencer reasonably clean. You can use the dip. Some people use that 50-50 peroxide and vinegar dip. I don't use that stuff. I use a glass bead blaster, but when we have a full-blown machine shop, so I don't have any problems with that. Average guy doesn't have access to all that. He's going to have to use a different method to clean his baffles. You can stick them in a tumbler, whatever. Clean the baffles. When you're done cleaning your baffles, it's time to reassemble your silencer. Now, what you want to do is you want to make sure you use a little lubricant before you reassemble your silencer. That way the baffles won't have any trouble getting down in the can. Just a little blast of that stuff and you're good. First thing that goes in is your stainless steel spacer ring. Drop it in. Make sure it goes all the way down. And I like using a little range rod to make sure that goes in. And seats all the way down to the bottom. First baffle that goes in is your blast baffle. The blast baffle again has the hole in it. Now I like to use the writing on the side of the suppressor to line up my scoop. The scoop that you see here at the base, I just take that scoop, line that up with the writing, either one way or the other, and that's how I drop that baffle in. Now this is not super critical. The average person is never able to tell the difference. If you just drop these baffles in with the scoops 180 degrees apart through the entire can, you'll be just fine. However, it makes a bit of a difference to a sound meter as how we configure our baffle stack. So the baffle that goes in behind the first baffle is put in, like I just said, 180 degrees apart. So I also have a flashlight up here, so if you get lost as you're going through there and you can't see down in there, just use your flashlight, look inside and make sure you know which way your baffle orientation scoop is. The next scoop in goes in opposite of the first scoop for the second baffle. So down it goes. You can use your little tool to make sure it's tapped all the way in, or you can stick your finger in there if it'll reach. And then the next baffle, this is the third baffle from the front. This baffle we like to have oriented the same way as the second baffle. So drop that one in with the scoop facing the same way as the baffle you just put in. Okay? Now that is a matter of sound level reading stuff more than it is to your ear. This is not real critical, so if you don't do this every time, it's not the end of the world. Make sure your baffle seats all the way down. Now, after you get through putting that baffle in, the rest of them go 180 degrees apart. So the next one will be in 180 degrees apart. The next one after that, 180 degrees. If they don't drop in just perfect, you can use that range rod to reach down inside that silencer and reorient that little scoop just like you want it. And just 180 degrees apart all the way to the back of the can. Put your last baffle in, then take your end cap. Put a little anti-seize lubricant here if you want to. Some guys like to use it, some guys don't. Tighten that down. Might want to grab a wrench and just using your hand, make sure that's in there snug. Don't torque it down with enough might to rip the threads out. And your silencer is ready for use.